So, I guess it's technically part 2 of Budget EK. Budget's gone out the window, so now it's just Red EK. Part 2. Welcome to another episode of VTEC Academy. You're about to get schooled. This car already has great chassis for it. It's already got auto power roll bar. It's got fast brakes, big brake kit in the front with, I don't even know what they are. They're a big set of Willwoods from Fast Brakes and a 2-piece rotor. It's already got a big brake rear kit on it. It's already got 5-lug suspension. It's already got progress group all the way around, progress group sway bars. And I got a trick little motor here. And actually, it's not that trick, it's basically stock. So what this is, it's a K24Z7. But, you notice the red valve cover, something it denotes is very special. Woo! It's an HPD Grand Dam spec K24. So, it's all OEM parts, but it's all hand assembled and balanced by HPD. This motor has 0 miles, maybe a little bit dyno break-in, but honestly, it doesn't even look like that. There's no soot in the exhaust board.
So
yeah, we pulled the valve cover off already just to check something, and no oil stains. I don't even think there's oil in the head, honestly. So this should make a couple more horsepower than a stock one. And mixed with tuning, it should make a really nice motor for the track. We're going to pair this with, I think, a Civic Si 6-speed with an LSD in it. That's the plan. We're going to look around and see what we have. Might be an RSX Type S tranny. I don't know what one of these retails for, but I can assure you the budget has gone out the window because of it. So we got a lot of parts to change over, though, to get to run in the EK. Pretty much the big thing with these motors is, as we talked about in part 1, the crank angle sensor. So what we're going to be using is a K-Power Industries adapter plate that replaces the entire chain cover with one that allows us to use an older style crank sensor. Scott's actually here to do all the hard work. I'm just here to look pretty and talk on the video. I'm sure you've seen Scott doing a lot of stuff around on our videos lately, which has been awesome to have the help. It's letting us knock out more stuff. I'll explain as we go because I still got to remember what we all got to do, so we're just going to get to it. So I don't even think this motor had dyno time on it. And because it's never been heated up, it was so easy to get the Honda bond off. I just peeled that entire strip off in one piece. I mean, it's just so... You can look at the whole motor. There's no discoloration in anything. It has to be maybe turned over a couple times on dyno, but... So one of the reasons why we have stripped back the timing chain cover and the valve cover is we've 2 things to change on the motor while it's open like this. Obviously, we have to change the timing chain cover to the K-Power Industries billet one, although I do believe their new production ones are cast and then machined to reduce costs, which honestly is great because a billet timing chain case or cover is stupid anyways. I mean, it's great when you need to rapidly prototype something, but as a production model, that doesn't really work. And the other thing we have to do is we have to change the, I guess it's a reluctor ring on the, let's see if I can point the camera the right way, on the exhaust cam.
And I think you might be able to see the difference there. We got 4 points on this one, but that one's actually got low spots. But we need that in order for the computer to work.
Yeah, so we need that in order for it to convert back to the older style electronics and older style pulses, although the intake one is still the same. Why Honda decided to change the exhaust one. My dad probably knows, and a few Honda engineers, but so that's why we have everything off right now. We're going to be doing that, but I'm still amazed at how immaculate this thing is.
Brand new in there.
Yeah. It is full of oil, though. The only other thing that we have to change, I forgot to mention, which is kind of part of the plate, is we have to put a reluctor ring on the snout of the crank. Now, I guess that's the snout side. Yeah, it's the snout. Actually, Honda obviously reused their engineering because there's a spacer in it right now.
Just a little washer, but it's the same thickness, so you're able to use your crank pulley as normal. And that says outside, make sure you do that, otherwise you might have problems running the engine. And don't forget to put that on before you put on your timing cover, because otherwise you're doing it again.
Yeah. I put one on backwards once when I replaced a head on my Element. And that was fun to get all back together and realize I had to pull it all back apart again. So now we're just going to reassemble the K-Power Industries heavy chain cover. So it's actually a two-piece design. I assume that's for billet fitment and cost cap. It's a nice looking part.
Crazy part. It's got all the features.
Yes, the only thing we had to do, because these are actually really intended for K-swapping Miatas and other rear-wheel drive cars, so they didn't need a front block bracket. So Scott had to custom machine some spacers. We're gonna Honda bond it up and get it back on the car. Actually, we're gonna ultra flange it. We like the ultra flange cans better than the Honda bond, but they do the same job, and it's still made by Honda. The chain cover is on. Now we got to put our block bracket on. So we had to machine custom spacers. If you look on the K-Power Industries one, where it would mount versus an OEM Honda one.
You got a nice flat area. So we had to make these little spacers to bring it out to the factory spec for our bracket to go on there. But on top of that, our little Passport block bracket already has a spacer that has to be used, and then that makes it flush with that. And then these spacers should bring it home if I can juggle.
So to my understanding, K-Power Industries does offer these spacers now. When we got this, it was originally a prototype that they were making, so they were only thinking about rear-wheel drive cars at the time. Obviously they put the holes there, but they hadn't made the spacers yet. But now I do believe for a few extra dollars you can add the spacers in with your kit if you're using this in a front-wheel drive application. Obviously the majority of their work is K-swapped Miatas and K-swapped 3 Series BMWs. So it's not really concerned them they're not mounting anything there. But because we are, and it's nice of them to recognize that people are going to use this on their front-wheel drive swaps also. So that way they're able to make the spacers. Alright, there we go. Got it on. There's our hole for our sensor that machined in, so we just gotta get the sensor in. And got the new reluctor wheel on the exhaust cam now. We are ready to reassemble.
And our thermostat housing, not that it really mattered.
True, we still have other parts we have to change out on this. We'll go over that later. We're ready to put the valve cover back on and at least seal this motor back up so we don't have to worry about dropping anything into it. So one of the parts that was missing from this motor was the alternator pulley. We stole one off another engine, but Scott figured out an inventive way to hold it still while he torques it.
I just came up with this, but because we're going to tighten this pulley on, if you put this belt on here and wrap it around once and hold it, it kind of keeps it from wanting to spin on you. I'm going to use our gun. Except for I don't have any tension there. And it just puts some friction on there so you can do it without it free spinning. We actually took it off that way too. I won't show you. But I put it on that way. That way whenever you're loosening, it's trying to roll the tension through there. It works out pretty well. Granted, I just put that on there so it should come off easy.
Well, now you gotta redo it again.
Yeah. But we'll see.
If you have one person to hold the belt rather than doing it yourself, it's even easier.
Oh yeah. But that's gonna be tight.
There's your quick tip. All right, now all the custom stuff is out of the way that we had to put on the motor. Now we're just assembling parts that didn't come from HPD for it. So we had to source a tensioner and a idler pulley for it. We are going to have to change the water pump. Oh, it's already changed.
I changed your...
Sorry, not the water pump.
Thermostat housing.
Thermostat housing.
So we could get that pointing down.
We also got the water tubes for it. We have to change throttle body to drive-by cable rather than drive-by wire. And then we still have to figure out what exactly we're going to do about the brake booster and purge valve and all that kind of stuff. We have everything. We're just not sure what solution we want to go with. We're going to try and make something simple and elegant. This is going to be a track day car, but we do need it to pass emissions in Arizona.
That way you can drive it to the track.
Exactly, and we can drive it to the track. Although, I'll be honest, my plan is to try and register the car as a collector car. In the state of Arizona, if you have collector car insurance, you can register as a collector car, which means you do not have to go through emissions. That's because you are required by your insurance to only drive so many miles a year. So the state of Arizona determined that it wasn't worth it having you go through emissions, only put maybe 2,000 miles a year on the road, which is normally what most collector car insurance is limited to. So that's always something you can look into also. Obviously, the car still has to be street legal and should pass emissions anyways, but it's a good way to not have to worry about going to emissions every couple of years. Yeah. So it makes life easier. But yeah, so we're just gonna wrap up the rest of a few things on this motor. We have a harness for it, although we had to change a few things for it. And actually it has no wrapping on it because we were using it to test fit on the last motor that was in the car, so we still have to wrap it up. So we're gonna get it all on, make sure everything reaches on this motor, and go from there. All right, so what was this mistake that you're making that we actually get calls on a lot?
Yeah, so because I'm using the lower hole on these brackets, my mind goes, oh, you need to use the lower hole. But because that bracket is attached to the engine, you need to use the upper hole, because going down low, you reach the high hole. And so when it's in the right spot, it just pushes right in. With our K24 in here, the cables and box that go with it. It just doesn't fit in the car right. So we have 2004 Accord V6 cables and the 2004 Accord shifter box. So I had to modify this bracket to fit those, to get the throw right, the angle right, and all that. Is that one already? Just put the shifter in the centered position, and then you just look where the cables are at and just go, okay, well, that's where they gotta be, so that's where they gotta be. I went, that looks about right, and drew a line on there. I had it like that, and I just put the cable through the angle it needed to go, and I drew a line on the base, and then I just cut this weld off and moved it to where I needed it. And now it works. Carter can go fast.
I assume we have an air leak somewhere. Oh, is there no gasket in that?
I don't know.
Oh, here it's dumping out the back over
I don't
here.
think there's...
All right, let's see.
There's a gasket.
Oh, there is?
Yep. So why? Don't know how we're gonna get that back in there like that, but I would just Honda bond the crap out of it.
Oh, look. It's been leaking for when around down, too. Is that like sediment?
Yeah.
It's kind of like...
I wonder if something just got in it.
So we ran into a bit of a problem with the swap. I don't know who assembled like the intake manifold on this motor. I don't know if it just kind of came slapped that way together from HPD. So this is the gasket that goes on the K24Z7. Notice the port for the water is round. This is the gasket for the RBC manifold we have. Notice it's not round. So we lay it on. See how there's actually some opening right there? So this whole thing is going to be filled with water, which means it's escaping around the gasket. Now, you might be able to just slap this gasket on and it work well enough, but luckily we spotted hanging on the wall for PRL, and then we looked up to make sure, an adapter for the 2012 SI motor with an RBC intake manifold. It already has the hole, so we're not restricting any flow coming out of the head, but it is large enough to also fit the hole for the intake manifold. So now, if I don't hold it upside down, you can see that gasket will cover everything we need. It's a little low, but trust me, it'll cover everything we need. And we don't have to put any OEM gaskets on it because it's already got gaskets with it. So perfect. Well, glad we found that. We're going to bolt this in and try and get the car fired up now. Luckily at our local McFadden, they had the O-rings we needed for the PRL intake manifold adapter. And that is a perfect example why anything that sits around, even cars that look brand new, die from not being used. They just get dried out by not actually having fluid rotated through them. But yeah, so we got that on finally. We had to put some longer studs and some longer bolts in it. Luckily we stocked those for Hasport's own intake manifold adapter, so we used them. I think we're really close to firing it up. Actually, we're going to try it right now. It's holding water, it seems like. And yeah, we're going to crank it over a few times without coils on it, so that way it doesn't fire up while we try and rotate some oil through the head and stuff.
That battery sounds good.
Yeah, I guess we might as well just try and fire it up now. All right, let's try again. Again. Oh. One more try. There's no fuel? All right, well.
Is that just not on? It's on, not on.
Maybe that was the jumper we needed? Oh, now I got flashing check engine light.
Wow.
Should we ask about that jumper?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we need to go ask about that jumper. Yeah, we can hear it and it's making pressure. So
Wow,
we had one jumper come out of the harness, we realized earlier. And we don't know where that goes. That might be it.
Right.
He's just looking to see if it's sparking.
Yeah, my guess is the jumper is for the crank angle sensor, and that's not doing it, and the crank angle sensor. Damn. What the hell? Are those things long?
What is that for? I've never seen one that long.
There should be 3 jumpers apparently, Scott.
Ah, I don't recall. I only know the green one fell out when we were doing that.
In the very beginning, we had a little difficulty firing this car up, and as it turns out, this harness was made actually for testing some electronics. So I had put in this connector right here. This connector is to intercept the crank angle sensor, the cam A and cam B sensor signals. During the last year, with it being moved in and out of boxes, in and out of cars, we'd lost the little jumpers. When it wouldn't fire earlier today, they came back and asked me what I thought was going on, and that was in fact what it was. So we quickly traced down where the wires went, jumped them properly. I'm going to make a more permanent jumper for it, or maybe even just repair it. Actually, we'll probably want to do some testing, so I'll just make a jumper for it. So we'll make a jumper for it so everything works properly, and we won't have any problems with it trying to fire up. But this car is a test mule. We're going to test some different types of electronics with it, but at the same time, it's also going to be Carter's track day car, so we want to make sure it runs trouble-free and idles nice and we can make it street legal. We will be using, again, the K-tuner ECU. We should be able to get it through emissions. We'll set it up so that it runs a stock tune with all the emission control devices it needs, vent shut valve, fuel tank pressure sensor, secondary O2, all that stuff, so that he can actually drive it on the street as well as take it to the track. Here we go. Yeah, I can go grab it real quick. Well, it's running, and we need to put the radiator fan on it. We also have a check engine light, so we're going to get a computer and plug in and check it out real fast. Well, that's the one that I refit with a different plug, but I don't know if it... What's up with the way the numbers are bouncing on fuel cylinders, on fuel? Is that just because of the... Is that just because it's trying to drop it? In the process of looking for a problem with the idle, on these particular ones, there isn't an idle set screw. So the idle is almost exclusively controlled by the idle air control valve or by vacuum leaks. We didn't find a vacuum leak, so we wanted to test the idle air control valve to see if that was a problem. If you look inside this throttle body, you can see a large opening. That's actually where the idle air control valve lets the air through in order to control the idle. On B series, it's actually just a small round port, but on these it's kind of big, so I cut this piece of rubber and basically slid it over our opening, and the vacuum kind of sucked it down and sealed it, and the engine immediately died. Because it immediately died, we realized that there was not a vacuum leak. The problem is actually with the idle air control valve being jammed, clogged, whatever, and letting too much air through, so we decided to just go ahead and replace that.
We found that the IACV was bad, so I actually already changed it, but I will show you that it's usually located on the bottom of the throttle body. Depending on your car, if this is just you trying to change your IACV, because any K-series can have this problem. So this plug could be on this side, but it's usually at the bottom of your throttle body. I recommend a really good screwdriver or one of these impact screwdrivers, because even though these screws are tiny, they will tend to strip if you don't have a good screwdriver to get them out. On a B series, normally you can adjust a screw inside and get your idle back, but K series, best luck is to just find a good one, maybe buy a new one and replace it. Now this is the problem we had, was that the water ports, at some point somebody was probably running pure water. The water gets inside there. This one's a little better, but it's still hard to see, but there is a cam inside this area that actually opens and allows a certain amount of flow through there, and this one's pretty corroded, so that's why we changed it. But I also found when I went to use this one, which really looks nice, it doesn't look that nice inside. I found one that was really clean. We put it on and it runs beautifully.
On, but I don't think it's gonna work.
You know, it's like stealth, like flat edge.
Oh jeez. Oh well. Yeah, it feels like there's a problem with the clutch. It might just be the shifter being so short and not having leverage over it. It feels weird, okay. But it definitely feels notchy in every gear. Okay. And obviously, and the engine's roll up at the low RPMs. Okay. Well, it's not the right tune. Yeah.
So that's why I like stalled it getting out there, because there's no throttle response under like $2,000. But other than that, I mean, it sounds really good.
It does sound really good.
It does sound really good. I only took up to like 4.5 just because.
Well,
But, you know,
let's try to figure out the shifting, and then we'll take it down and get it tuned.
sounds good.
All right.
Cool.
Success.
I never know where to look. I mean, I know to look at the camera, but I tend to look at
I
you.
don't know what to do with my hands.
So,
Okay.
you're on.
Oh, what am I on? I'm just kidding.
But now I'm teasing why.
And then you can say, welcome to VTEC Academy. You're about to get schooled in the
I don't think I can say that. YouTube guidelines might be against that. All right.
All right.
That's all you get. That's the intro.
All right, Phoenix, how you doing?
We'll do it live. Just kidding.